Well, hello. My name is Jacob Monk. Welcome to this short geopolitical orientation or information. All what I'm telling you about here, you maybe know already if you have read the papers, searched the internet, and if you are interested in the international relations and the future of the world. Well, but I'm seeing these things from my own perspective, and that is from the perspective of a Dane living here in Copenhagen. I'm very sorry to say that Denmark is some kind of prostitute associated colony of USA, and the current administration run by Donald Trump. That's a very bad thing, because the policy of Donald Trump is hurting not only the whole world, not only USA, but especially also small countries like my own Denmark. Well, let's see what is happening, and I have a few subjects I want to discuss with you. And I'll show you here on the computer. Subject number 1 is an article from New York Times, the 21st of July this year, 2019. And the editorial board, that is the editors of New York Times, they wrote this opinion article about what is America's winning hand if Russia played the Chinese card. Well, the idea is this, that if the Russiophobia propaganda coming from USA, it has been that way for many, many years, probably for 100 years, but especially the last years has been very severe, and it has been very harmful to the international relations. This Russiophobia propaganda that comes mostly from the Democratic Party and from New York Times and from other public I would say papers and television stations that is supporting the Democratic Party. They don't have any answer to their own question. What will happen if Russia plays the Chinese card? What they're thinking about is that Russia has the possibility of uniting with China, that is making some kind of military alliance with China. And this alliance will be pretty strong, because China is the country with the highest population in the world, and Russia is the country with the most natural resources and most of the geographical area in the world. So this will probably be a pretty strong alliance, and it will probably be an anti-USA alliance. You have to understand that already now, Russia and China is partly united. There's an organization called SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It is some kind of defense organization where China, Russia, India, and quite a few other countries are members. You have to understand that the American alliance, the so-called NATO, it has around 15% of the world population as members. But SCO, they have around 45% of the world population as members. So it's a much bigger organization. But of course, USA is the country in the world with the highest spending on military hardware. So SCO doesn't have the same amount of weapons as NATO has. But because there are more people, they have spread countries over quite a big part of the surface of the world. Therefore, SCO is also a very strong organization. But they are not as developed. They once in a while make military exercise together, but not all the time. And China is stating again and again that China is an independent country. They are not member of any military alliance. So they could even say, well, we are not really members of SCO, or SCO is not a military alliance, is a purely defense alliance. Well, I don't want to go into details because I'm not wise enough to discuss these problems in details. But the fact is that Russia and China has been working together also when it comes to military for quite a few years. And China are buying Russian rockets, Russian fighter planes, and a lot of other Russian military hardware. So there is a big potential for these two powers to work together, and they will have to do it if the American anti-Russian, anti-China policy is continuing. I hope this defense union that China and Russia can make together will be a strong alliance, because at the moment USA is clearly the aggressive part. They want to conquer the world. They want to control everything, and that is the problem. You can see here my Facebook page. I'll find it now. Well, I have a little cartoon taken from Johan Galtung's website. And this cartoon is showing the current situation where USA is trying to control the world, and China, Europe, and Russia are all in a defensive position. I suppose you understand the idea of this cartoon. The panda is China, the bear is Russia, and the bull is the old symbol of Europe. So panda, bull, and bear, they are trying to stick together. And the future of Europe would be much better if we could unite with SCO. And I think that is actually what will happen, because the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative is gradually growing into Europe. They have right now an agreement with Italy, halfway an agreement with France, an agreement with Greece, and they are coming into the East European countries, Poland, Hungary, the Balkan countries, and other countries that are not centered in the so-called center of Europe. They are called the Visegrad countries. And these countries, they certainly want to connect to China because it is their possibility of having big economic growth when the Belt and Road Initiative is connecting to these countries, and there will be connection lines for industrial goods produced in China and bought in Europe. Well, let's see another website. Here we have, what is America winning hand if Russia plays the Chinese card? That is exactly the what we have been talking about, and this website you have seen already. And now we are going to to Fox News. Fox News is maybe the only American news channel not directly against Donald Trump and Donald Trump's policy, because Donald Trump's policy, the one he got elected as president for having, he was the policy of working together with Russia. Since then, the Democrats have said, well, Donald Trump is a Russian agent. The Russians, they control the election, and therefore Donald Trump is not the real president of USA. He is only a Russian asset, a Russian agent, and so on and so forth. And of course, there are also other politicians in the Republican camp that are called Russian agents. And here you see some guy, I don't know who it is called McConnell, is also called a Russian asset. Well, they're quite unintelligent in the Democratic camp in USA, and therefore my forecast about the future is that 90% sure they'll lose also the coming election, because they don't really have any independent policy. They can only say Donald Trump is a Russian agent, Donald Trump is a Russian agent. Russians controlled our last election. And guess what? When Donald Trump wins the common elections, of course they can say, well, Russians, they control and other elections. So, seen from a democratic point of view, Russians are actually controlling politics in USA. Well, how can you talk about a democracy if the whole electoral process is controlled by Russia, by a country on the other side of the world? I was nearly saying a country several thousand miles away from USA. How can this country control the election and still you would call it a democratic election? Well, actually, the Democrats should say that if Russia is controlling the election, we don't even want to participate in this election. Then why don't they do that? I don't understand the madness of democratic, so-called democratic politicians in USA. Well, let's find another website. Here we have Bestie News. It's a channel on YouTube, a very good channel. They are telling about what is happening in Russian television, and they are showing different a lot of programs from Russian television with English subtitles. That means it's easy to understand these programs. And some of these programs has a very, very wise Israeli intelligence specialist. He's called Yaakov Redmi. He's also a Russian citizen at the same time as he's an Israeli citizen. He's a Jew. He's living in Israel. He was former leader of one of the Israeli intelligence agencies. I think maybe he's retired now, but he's a very wise person. And now he's talking about why Donald Trump scrapped the nuclear deal. They scrapped the nuclear deal with Iran. He has scrapped the nuclear deal with Russia, the so-called, I think, IPMC treaty. Maybe I'm not using the right letters, but the treaty saying that nuclear middle-distance rockets must not be placed close to the other part. Donald Trump has said that USA will leave this treaty. That means USA will place atomic rockets, atomic bombs in Germany, Ukraine, Poland, Romania, and a lot of other states being controlled by USA and placed close to the Russian border. That means that the time from when the Russians find out that an American attack is underway until they have to react, it will be greatly reduced. Now it's about 10 minutes, as I understand. If Russians, they place atomic weapons in Poland, it will be about 1 or 2 minutes. That means that the Russians will have to fire their rockets, their atomic rockets, against the American cities and take the decision about that in a time frame around 1 minute. They have to react very fast, and that means it is also very unsecure, and that is the result of the Donald Trump policy. The whole world will be on the limit of atomic war. And atomic war will have a very clear result. We all know that. The result will be that both USA and Russia will be deleted from the surface of the world. And after that, the countries being connected to these two countries, for example, my own country, Denmark, it's a NATO country, will be cleaned out from the map too, because there are American military installations in these countries, and these countries are therefore a target of the Russian rockets. And these rockets, they can't be stopped by bombing Russia, because they are placed on ships sailing around the world. They are placed in submarines. They are placed in big aeroplanes and so on and so forth. So it's impossible to defend USA against the Russian rockets. That's not something I'm inventing. You can listen to the American generals. They say exactly the same. So therefore, this very wise man, Jakob Kedmi, he warns against the development. And now to something more funny, I would like to say. Well, you know, Donald Trump, his stupid policy is very much against China. He said China is stealing American technology. Well, the fact is that China is in front, is a leader in technology. So they will not steal American technology, they say. That is the leader of Huawei that has said that in several interviews. Of course, we don't steal American technology because our own technology is better and more advanced than the American technology. Why should we steal yesterday's technology when we have the technology of tomorrow ourselves? So, of course, the Chinese don't steal American technology. Maybe they did that 10 or 15 years ago, but that time China did not have any rules about any laws, any agreement with USA or anything about transferring technology. It was totally legal, according to Chinese law, to copy foreign technology, and that is what they did. Of course, I suppose USA and any other country that does not have a law against copying other countries' technology, they want to steal this technology. And I suppose that is what China did 15 years ago. Not today. today it's USA that are stealing Chinese technology because China is much more advanced when it comes to programming and computers and technology than they are in USA. And by the way, most of the American inventions in this regard, it is made by Chinese scientists that USA has bought to develop so-called American technology. Well, even American technology is developed by Chinese today. In here, when Donald Trump has told Apple they should move all their production lines from China to USA, well, actually, they are doing exactly the opposite. Apple moves Mac Pro production to China. This is one of the only production line that Apple had in USA, but now it's being moved to China. Why? Because the workers are better. It's more easy to find highly skilled engineers in China than it is in USA. So it's cheaper to produce quality products in China than it is in USA. That is why Apple is moving Mac Pro production to China. Remember, Mac Pro, it's the professional line of Macintosh products. That is the line of computers they use in big companies for animation, creating films, and so on and so forth. Well, actually, every single iPhone in the world is produced in China. So the whole American idea of we don't want Huawei to sell their phones in USA, it is purely nonsense, because if USA don't want Chinese technology in USA because they are afraid that Chinese will harvest information in USA, well, then Americans should ban Macintosh computers too, because they are all made in China, except the Mac Pro production line. But now, as you can read, even this line will in the future be produced in China. Well, let's change our website. Here we have another YouTube channel called Russia Inside. Here we have the Russian Secretary of the Foreign Ministry. She's called Sakharova, and she's talking about this potential alliance between Russia and China. But we have to state and understand that there is no such military alliance yet between China and Russia, because China don't want to be member of any real military alliance. But probably if USA is provoking China enough by sailing their military ships close to China's border in the South China Sea, and flying with their flights close to China's borders, this is only provocative initiatives from USA. Also, USA has sold a lot of modern weapons to Taiwan, although USA has accepted many years ago that Taiwan is a part of China. It is an independent part of China, but it is a part of China. It is not a part of USA, and it can never be an independent country because it has always and will always be associated to China. It is a Chinese population. It has been a part of China for more than 1,000 years, and it will continue that way. Well, I think we are coming here to the last website I'll show you, and this is a No. Here we have the last website I'll show you. It is the Chinese Xinhua Net, and it's a Chinese report about human rights in USA. Every day you can read about Americans making reports about everything what is wrong in human rights in China. But remember, China is the biggest human rights project that has happened to humanity in the last 100 years. Around 50 million people has been lifted out from poverty, starvation, hunger and disease by the Chinese economic development in the last 30 years. So nearly 50 million people from China has been given their human rights, and human rights are first of all the right to have something to eat, to have a job, to be able to go to the hospital when you are sick, to be able to get education, to be able to move from one place to another. Well, these are all human rights that 50 million people from China has been giving because of the Chinese economic development. And therefore China is very proud about what has happened in China in the last 30 years. China is a democracy. Americans probably don't know that, but it's not a parliamentary democracy. China don't like the Montesquieu. You know, Montesquieu, he was a French philosopher that made the foundation of the Western version of democracy. That is parliamentary democracy with several political parties fighting against each other. That is the reason why USA is a chaos. No one has responsibility for anything in USA. It is not the same in China. In China, they have a leadership. They have a democracy, but they also have centralization. They have one party, one People's Congress running the country. They have one president, and probably he will be president for many years. That is, China is a trustworthy partner. USA is not a trustworthy partner, and the whole world knows that. And that is why the future belongs to China and not to USA. China is going to be the leading country in the world when it comes to economy, technology, and in 10 or 20 years also when it comes to military. So USA is going to lose, and they better get used to the idea that USA can and must be satisfied with running the affairs in USA, not in the whole world. China has the idea that we don't want to export our way of living to other countries. USA has the idea that we want to export our political models, our way of life, our culture, our philosophy to other countries. And this is the reason that USA is an imperialistic, suppressing state that wants to control and suppress the whole world. And actually, they are doing that already now. I know that as a citizen in one of the most Americanized states in the world, and that is Denmark, the tiny, small state of H.C. Andersen placed here in Northern Europe. But China is an independent state. China wants to be an example for other states. They want to work together with other states that wants to be independent. And we are talking about economic cooperation, not political control, not imperialism. And that is the big difference between USA and China. USA is an imperialist country. It's probably, you could call it, a neo-colonist country. China is an independent country that tries to inspire other countries to be independent too. Thank you for listening.